It may be too late, for although economists and social scientists tell us that this is not a political issue, it remains perhaps the most highly politically incorrect one.
There's a dispute, I think, between people who are making moral claims about family, divorce, cohabitation, gay marriage, all sorts of that. There's a dispute between people who are making moral claims about this and people who are making data-based claims.
And when you look at textbooks, when you look at what scholars and academic people who are not doing the research say about this issue, there's a very big disconnect there.
Those of us who are interested in data-based claims and are trying to steer clear of making clear moral claims about this, we're largely in agreement about the troubling waters that we're about to boat into.
A lot of the textbooks generally are not reporting very much of the evidence that's being accumulated by the researchers.
It's also true, I think, for people who are worried about women's rights, about the gay rights, about environmentalism. All of these movements are deeply informed by a 1970s era preoccupation with the so-called population bomb.
People who are out there teaching, primarily in smaller colleges and universities, they really don't want to go into their classes and talk about how differences in family form make a difference in terms of child outcomes.
If suddenly we live in a world in which people understand that the future is one of depopulation, then all of those progressive causes will have to find a new way of arguing.
Interest groups that support families are very marginal in the political competition. There's a good reason for this, I think, and that is that families are units that are looking after children. They're usually pretty busy, and they don't have the time or the inclination to compete on the political stage.
This was a subcommittee of the Senate, as I recall, maybe 8 or 9, 10 years ago. And at that time, many of us were calling attention to the fact that marriage was a seriously weakening institution in the United States. We were hoping that they might take some kind of action.
Politicians will be bombarded by all sorts of groups. The temptation to forget that there are families out there and that the state and society in large has a role in supporting and protecting the family. That's what is likely to get lost.
I don't think anything came out of that, to tell you the truth.
I have to admit that we started to pay serious attention to our family policy after we admitted that we are facing the demographic catastrophe. The number of the young children are becoming less and less. And for such a small nation as Latvia, it might even endanger the survival of our nation. So it's very crucial for us to change the demographic situation. And we, as the policymakers, think that the best way to improve the demographic situation is by strengthening the families.
Well, one of the tricky things about this question is, if people are not having enough children as a whole to replace the population, does that imply eventual human extinction? And I think the answer actually is no, because there are children still being born. It's just that they're disproportionately being born to people of faith. That's true whether we're talking about Orthodox Jews or fundamentalist Christians.